Just went kerflooey. It went south. So I just going to delete it. I figured I was able to get back on, but it was 4 minutes of wasted time, of your time especially. No skin off my nose, but hey, I don't want to waste 4.5 minutes of somebody's time. Actually, almost 5. Okay, chapter 13. Work to do. Getting hot out here in Missouri land. I don't know what I'm going to do for summer yet. I need to come up with a different plan than what I got going, which is nothing. Heat's worse than cold in my book. All the girls demanded they sleep in their bedroom that night. Right after the voice on the telephone, Bill ordered everyone to bed. Each girl took her sleeping bag and camped on the floor. John wanted to get his sleeping bag too, but there wasn't enough room. While Uncle Bill called the telephone company, Aunt Betty tucked in the children. Something bad is happening, isn't it? Susan said softly, so only her mother could hear. Don't scare your sisters, Aunt Betty said. I'm not sure what's going on, but it doesn't look good. John felt very much alone in his room. He had too many questions. Rushing through his mind to get any sleep. The voice on the phone made him feel cold. He put on a sweater, even though it was a warm June evening. Then he got in bed and read one of his favorite books. His uncle had left the house suddenly after talking on the phone. John was determined to stay awake and question him when he got home. But at 9:30, Aunt Betty made him turn out the light. John lay in the darkness, the old red bicycle at the foot of his bed, and waited. Much later, he heard a door slam. He wasn't sure if he had fallen asleep or not. Quietly, he crept down the hall to the living room. His aunt and uncle were talking on the sofa in whispers. John tried to hear. And they acted like I was crazy, Uncle Bill said. They said the lines might have gotten across, but nothing could make the phone glow. But it said, "Remember Joe," Aunt Betty whispered. That call was to us. Why would anyone say such a thing? I don't know, Uncle Bill said. He sounded very tired. I went out to his old workshop and looked around in his things. I couldn't find any clues. John couldn't hear well enough, so he leaned out closer, poking his head underneath the small table by the door. But as he moved, he knocked the table leg, which made the lamp on the table shake. Come on out, John, Uncle Bill said. John scooted out from the table and stood up, feeling foolish, yet defiant. He wasn't sure if he was in trouble or not. I couldn't sleep and I wanted to know what was happening, John said quickly. Why did the telephone act like that? We don't know, Uncle Bill said, but you shouldn't be eavesdropping on our conversation. But I want to know what's going on, John complained. Nobody tells me anything, and it's my bicycle. The voice on the phone said something about Joe. Did it mean my father? Mr. and Mrs. Kramer looked at each other. They both seemed upset, maybe even afraid. Gotta get it down here where I can see it better. Uncle Bill shook his head back and forth slowly. I just don't know, he said. Maybe, but if the voice was referring to your father, you could be in great danger. Why, John asked. What have I done? I don't think it's what you've done, but more who you are, Uncle Bill said, and what you have, namely the Spirit Flyer. I don't understand, John said. Boy, isn't that a famous line? Well, none of us understand, Uncle Bill said. He sighed. Maybe there's no connection to your father. I wish my dad was here. He might have some ideas. Does Grandfather Kramer know something, John asked. He might, Uncle Bill said. Anyway, we can't call him until tomorrow. Let's all just go to bed. In the morning we can call. We'll still have time to think things over before noon. Will I have to destroy the Spirit Flyer, John asked. I hope not, Uncle Bill said. Now let's all just get some sleep and pray for the best. John didn't think he'd ever fall asleep. He kept asking himself the same questions again and again. Why did someone want him to destroy the Spirit Flyer? Was the old bike really valuable? Was he really in danger? What kind of danger? And did the voice on the phone mean Joe, his father? John stared at the ceiling, thinking and thinking until he fell into an uneasy sleep. John dreamed several things. Once again, he was riding the Spirit Flyer high above the clouds toward the open mouth of a giant black snake. Someone was calling his name. John tried to scream back in answer, saying, I'm here, I'm here. But he couldn't. No sound came out of his mouth. He felt as if he were suffocating. Then suddenly the dream changed, and John felt he was all right, that someone was helping him. John was riding the Spirit Flyer through beautiful blue skies. Below him, so I can change pages faster than last night. Below him was a farm. A man in the field waved at him. waved a hat at him in a friendly welcome. Then John recognized the man. Grandfather Kramer. John shouted out and steered the spirit flyer down to him. John felt happy and full of peace. His grandfather was smiling. As the old red bike glided down next to his grandfather, John started to hop off, but his grandfather said, wake up, there's work to do." Then John was back in his bed. Someone was shaking him awake. John opened his eyes, mumbling. He looked around the room to see who had shaken him. The spirit flyer rested on its kickstand near the bed. "Who shook me?" John asked, thinking maybe one of his cousins was playing a joke. He looked on the floor. No one was hiding. He started to look under the bed when the spirit flyer rolled forward and gently bumped his leg. John blinked twice. Suddenly he was very awake. "So it was you," John said. Then all by itself, the bike turned and rolled toward the closed door of the bedroom. John watched in amazement as the old bike's front tire bumped against the door, then backed away. At that instant, the door opened by itself. The spirit flyer rolled out into the hall. The old red bike paused for a moment as if waiting for him, then rolled down the hall without a sound. The boy quickly put on his slippers, then ran after the old bike. "Where are you going?" John whispered, following the spirit flyer through the house to the back door of the kitchen. The old bike bumped the back door. The door opened. The spirit flyer rolled outside into the lawn, stopping on the grass. John walked outside, shutting the back door quietly. He stared at the old red bike, unsure what to do. "Do you want to go somewhere?" John asked. He walked over to the bike. He felt chilly, standing in the damp grass, dressed only in his pajamas and slippers. Nevertheless, he climbed onto the seat of the old bicycle. He wondered if he should start pedaling, but the old bike began moving by itself across the lawn. John held onto the handlebars. He didn't try to steer it. The old red bike seemed to know where it wanted to go. After rolling a few feet, it left the ground, rising swiftly into the air, gaining speed as it passed over nearby houses. The wheels were turning, but John wasn't pedaling. Even though he was chilly, John felt wonderful, speeding quietly through the air, the lights of Centerville blinking below him. To the east, the sky was lighter. Dawn was coming to push away the night. The old red bike kept going higher and higher. It flew over Centerville, out past the river into the farm country. At first, John thought the old bike might be taking him to Grandfather Kramer's farm, like in his dream. But they were going in the opposite direction. The boy and bicycle passed over several farms and forests. Then the spirit flyer began to descend. They skimmed over the tops of trees out in the middle of nowhere, it seemed to John. Then in a small clearing, John saw an old farmhouse and barn. As they flew silently closer, John could see by the old broken windows of the house that it had been abandoned a long time ago. The spirit flyer suddenly slowed down. The old red bike moved above the barn, then slowly dropped down, landing on the roof. John immediately assumed the bike wasn't going to move, so he got off to explore. The old barn roof creaked under his feet. The shingles were rotten. Suddenly, John's leg slipped and dropped through the roof. Luckily, he only scraped his leg. As he examined his wound, he noticed something in the barn. Through the hole in the roof, he saw a shiny tractor-trailer parked inside. "Why would a nice truck like that be parked in this old barn?" John asked aloud. Then his heart skipped a beat. An orange arrow was on the side of the truck. The bicycle thieves. John crawled quickly to the spirit flyer and climbed on. He took a firm grip on the handlebars, pulled down, then started to pedal, but the pedals wouldn't turn. "Come on," John said. "Let's go." He pushed harder on the pedals. Finally, they moved slowly, as if they were turning in a bowl of glue. "Please," John said, "we don't have much time. We need to go right now before they get away." But the old red bike had other plans in mind. It moved about 6 inches, and John stopped fighting it. It was too hard. "Good grief," John said disgustedly. "You bring me out here, then you don't help me. I guess I'll have to do this by myself. Maybe I can drive the truck back. I don't know these roads. I could get lost. I don't even know how to drive. What kind of mess have you gotten me into? You bring me out here to the middle of nowhere and abandon me." John was beginning to feel angry. Of course, he wasn't really abandoned. He was sitting right on top of the spirit flyer. But John was young and didn't know the secrets of the old red bike. He liked to fly, but he didn't like to wait. "If that's the way it is, I'll figure something out myself," John said defiantly. He started to get off the old bike, but when he lifted his foot, it wouldn't leave the pedal. John shook his foot. It was stuck. He shook it harder. Nothing happened. Then he pulled and shook at the same time, but his foot remained on the pedal. Then John realized that by some magic the old red bicycle would not let his foot loose. Instead of trusting the spirit flyer, the boy became angrier. He jerked his foot as hard as he could, but once again nothing happened. "Let me go," John commanded. I can do this without your help." Immediately John's foot came off the pedal. He grunted and knocked the kickstand down. He almost kicked the old bike because he was angry, but he remembered what happened last time he had kicked the spirit flyer. He didn't want the tires to go flat, at least not on top of the barn. John got down on his hands and knees. Very carefully he crawled along the roof, avoiding holes and rusty nails. The boards creaked and popped. John peered through a large hole, trying to find a way down into the barn. Far below him he saw the floor. Maybe I should go back to the spirit flyer, John thought. Then he saw a rope attached to an old pulley on a rafter. In his eagerness to get to the rope, John crawled too quickly onto some shingles that seemed solid. Suddenly there was a groan, then a terrific crack. The next thing he knew, he was falling through the air. Another cliffhanger. Another barn hanger, sorry. Too bad. I'm not reading 2 chapters unless it's like a 3-pager. And I doubt that it is, very seriously. Nope. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. 5 pages. Whatever. If somebody said anything, I might read the next one. I'll probably do it on another video, though. Hey, Zepton, you're on. Okay. Well, since you're here listening, I'll go ahead and read the next chapter. How's that sound? Say yes, that'd be nice. Or you're going to be on. Say you're going to be on, then I'll read it. If not, I'm not going to. Although I might turn this one off and then start another one. Do you want me to read another chapter? Okay, I'll bag it. Good night.